The champagne flute trembled in Claire Parker's hand as she caught sight of him across the crowded ballroom. Her ex-boyfriend, Vincent Daly, was staring at her with the same possessive glare that had haunted her dreams for months. She hadn't expected him to be at the annual Healthcare Innovation Gala. This was supposed to be her fresh start after finally breaking free from their toxic relationship. Claire quickly ducked behind a marble column, her heart racing beneath the delicate fabric of her emerald evening gown. "Are you hiding from someone, or is this column particularly fascinating?" Claire jumped at the deep voice behind her, nearly spilling her champagne. She turned to find herself face to face with a tall man in an impeccably tailored black tuxedo. His dark hair was neatly styled and his green eyes held a mixture of amusement and concern. "I'm sorry," she said, straightening her posture. Yes, I'm avoiding someone." The man's expression shifted to one of genuine concern. "Anyone I should be worried about?" Claire hesitated. Why would a complete stranger care about her problems? Yet something in his demeanor made her feel she could trust him. He's persistent. I didn't expect him to be here tonight." The man glanced discreetly around the column. "The one in the navy suit by the bar. He hasn't taken his eyes off this direction since you disappeared." Claire nodded, feeling the familiar tightness in her chest whenever Vincent was mentioned. "That's him." "I'm Gabriel Owens, by the way," he said, extending his hand. "And you are?" "Claire Parker." "I'm with Horizon Pharmaceuticals." Gabriel's eyebrows raised slightly. "The new director of research. I've heard impressive things about your work in oncology treatment innovations." Claire felt a flush rise to her cheeks. Her reputation had preceded her, but she hadn't expected the recognition. "Thank you, and you are?" A slight smile curved Gabriel's lips. "I'm the CEO of Owens Healthcare Group. We're hosting tonight's event." Claire felt her mouth drop open slightly. She was hiding behind a column with Gabriel Owens, the Gabriel Owens, whose company was revolutionizing hospital management systems across the country. At 35, he was one of the youngest healthcare CEOs in the industry, known for both his business acumen and his philanthropy. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Owens. I didn't realize." "Please, it's Gabriel, and don't apologize. I'm more concerned about your situation." His eyes flicked back toward Vincent, who was now scanning the room, drink in hand. "Would you like some help?" Before Claire could answer, Vincent spotted her and began walking in their direction, his face set in a determined expression she knew all too well. "Claire," Vincent called out, loud enough to draw the attention of nearby guests. "You've been avoiding my calls." Gabriel smoothly stepped beside Claire, placing a gentle hand at the small of her back. The touch was protective rather than possessive, and Claire felt a strange sense of security wash over her. "I believe the lady has made it clear she doesn't wish to speak with you," Gabriel said, his voice calm but firm. Vincent's eyes narrowed as he sized up Gabriel. "This is a private matter. I just need 5 minutes." "No, Vincent," Claire said, finding her voice. "I've said everything I needed to say. It's been over for months." Vincent's expression darkened. "You can't just— Is there a problem here?" A security guard approached, clearly noting the tension. Gabriel spoke with quiet authority. "This gentleman was just leaving. He seems to have forgotten his invitation." Vincent bristled. "You can't throw me out. I'm Dr. Vincent Daly. I have connections." "Not with my company," Gabriel interrupted smoothly. "And as this is an Owens healthcare event, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave." The security guard moved closer, and Vincent's expression contorted with rage. For a moment, Claire feared he might cause a scene, but eventually, he backed away. "This isn't over, Claire," he muttered, just loud enough for her to hear before turning and stalking toward the exit. Claire released a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Thank you," she said to Gabriel once Vincent was out of sight. "That could have gotten ugly." "Has he threatened you before?" Gabriel's eyes were serious now, all traces of the earlier amusement gone. Claire hesitated. "Not explicitly, but he doesn't take rejection well. He's been showing up at my apartment, my favorite coffee shop, calling from different numbers." "That's stalking, Claire." Gabriel's voice was gentle but firm. "Have you reported him?" "I filed a restraining order last month, but he seems to think the rules don't apply to him." She sighed, feeling the weight of the past months pressing down on her. "I'm sorry to involve you in this. Don't apologize. I'm glad I could help." Gabriel paused, then added, "Would you like to move to somewhere more private? The terrace, perhaps? You look like you could use some fresh air." Claire nodded gratefully, and Gabriel led her through the crowd, his hand remaining at her back, not controlling, just reassuring. The terrace was mercifully empty, the cool night air a welcome relief from the stuffy ballroom. "Better?" Gabriel asked as Claire took a deep breath. "Much, thank you." She turned to face him. "Both for getting rid of Vincent and for not treating me like I'm overreacting. Some people think I should be flattered by his persistence." Gabriel's expression hardened. "There's nothing flattering about someone violating your boundaries and making you feel unsafe." The genuine understanding in his voice made Claire study him more closely. Gabriel Owens wasn't what she'd expected from a healthcare mogul. The media portrayed him as brilliant but distant, focused solely on building his empire. Yet here he was, spending his time helping a woman he'd just met deal with her ex-boyfriend. "So," Gabriel said, leaning against the stone balustrade, "beyond dealing with unwanted admirers, how are you enjoying the gala?" Claire smiled, grateful for the change of subject. "It's lovely, though I've spent most of it networking rather than enjoying the champagne." "The burden of being the new research director," Gabriel said with a smile. "Your reputation precedes you, you know. Your paper on targeted immunotherapy drug delivery was revolutionary." Claire felt that blush returning. "You read my paper, of course. I make it a point to stay informed about innovations that could change patient outcomes. Your work could save thousands of lives." There was something so earnest in the way he spoke about her research that Claire felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with anxiety over Vincent. "What about you?" she asked. "How does the CEO of Owens Healthcare spend his evenings when he's not rescuing damsels in distress at galas?" Gabriel laughed, a warm, rich sound that seemed to reverberate through Claire. "Sadly, less exciting than you might think. I work too much, according to my sister. When I'm not at the office, I'm usually at home with a good book or taking my dog, Archie, for runs along the river." Archie, a very opinionated golden retriever who believes he's actually the CEO of the company. Claire laughed, finding it easy to picture this powerful man being bossed around by his dog. "He sounds wonderful." "He is, though he'd be offended I'm not showing everyone his pictures right now." Gabriel pulled out his phone and showed her a photo of a handsome golden retriever with soulful eyes. "He's my best friend." A man who publicly admits his best friend is his dog, that's refreshing honesty. Gabriel shrugged. "Life's too short for pretense. Speaking of which." He hesitated, then continued. "Would you like to have dinner sometime, not for networking or business, just dinner?" The question caught Claire off guard. Was Gabriel Owens asking her on a date? The idea seemed absurd. He was one of the most eligible bachelors in the healthcare industry, and she was still sorting through the emotional debris of her relationship with Vincent. Yet looking at Gabriel's face, open and expectant, Claire found herself nodding before she'd fully processed the question. "I'd like that," she said softly. Gabriel's smile was worth any hesitation she might have felt. "Great. How about tomorrow night? I know a place that makes the best pasta in the city, and it's quiet enough we can actually hear each other talk. Tomorrow sounds perfect." A comfortable silence fell between them as they stood on the terrace, the sounds of the gala floating through the open doors. For the first time in months, Claire felt safe. It was just one dinner, she told herself. What could possibly happen in one night? Claire had no idea that this chance meeting at the gala would be the beginning of something neither of them had expected, something that would change both their lives forever. The following evening, Claire found herself staring at her reflection in the mirror, second-guessing her outfit choice for the third time. She'd settled on a simple navy blue dress that hugged her curves without being too formal or revealing. Professional but approachable, that was the look she was aiming for. But was it right for a date with a CEO? It's just dinner, she reminded herself aloud. Not a job interview or a marriage proposal. Still, she couldn't help the flutter of nerves in her stomach. Gabriel Owens was unlike anyone she'd ever dated. Vincent had been charming at first too, but there had always been an underlying intensity to him that she'd mistaken for passion. Now, she recognized it as possessiveness. Gabriel was different. There was a quiet confidence about him that didn't need to dominate a room or a conversation. And the way he'd stepped in last night without making her feel helpless or incapable, that was new. At precisely 7:00 p.m., her doorbell rang. Claire took a deep breath, gave herself one last glance in the mirror, and went to answer it. Gabriel stood in her doorway looking casually elegant in dark slacks and a light blue button-down shirt that brought out the green in his eyes. He held a small bouquet of wildflowers. "These reminded me of you," he said, handing them to her. "Beautiful but not showy." Claire accepted them with a smile, touched by the thoughtful gesture. "Thank you, they're lovely." She invited him in while she put the flowers in water. "Nice place," Gabriel commented, looking around her apartment. It was modest but comfortable, with bookshelves lining one wall and large windows overlooking the city. "Thanks. I just moved in about 6 months ago after." She trailed off, not wanting to bring up Vincent on their first date. "After you left your ex," Gabriel finished for her. There was no judgment in his tone, just understanding. Claire nodded, arranging the wildflowers in a vase. "Yes, fresh start and all that." "Fresh starts are good." Gabriel's smile was warm. "Ready to go." The restaurant Gabriel had chosen was a small Italian place tucked away on a side street. It wasn't fancy or pretentious, but the moment they walked in, the owner greeted Gabriel by name and led them to a quiet corner table with a candle glowing softly between them. "Marco makes the best carbonara you'll ever taste," Gabriel said as they settled in. "I discovered this place by accident during my residency years ago, and I've been coming back ever since." "You were a doctor before becoming a CEO?" Claire asked, genuinely curious. She realized she knew Gabriel's professional reputation, but little about his personal journey. Gabriel nodded. "Cardiothoracic surgeon. I practiced for 7 years before shifting to the administrative side. I realized I could impact more patients' lives by improving healthcare systems than I could in the operating room." "That's impressive. Most doctors I know would never willingly give up practice for administration." "It wasn't an easy decision," Gabriel admitted. "But watching my father die because of a preventable hospital error changed my perspective." His eyes clouded briefly with old pain. "The system failed him, not the individual doctors. I wanted to fix the system." Claire reached across the table and squeezed his hand impulsively. "I'm sorry about your father." Gabriel turned his hand to hold hers properly. "Thank you. It was 10 years ago now, but it still drives everything I do." Their food arrived, momentarily pausing the conversation. Claire took a bite of her carbonara and closed her eyes in appreciation. "Oh, you weren't exaggerating. This is amazing." Gabriel smiled, pleased by her reaction. Marco doesn't believe in cutting corners, kind of like you with your research, I imagine. Is that what you think of me? That I don't cut corners? I think you're thorough and dedicated. Your work speaks for itself. Gabriel took a sip of wine. But I'm more interested in getting to know Claire the person, not just Dr. Parker the brilliant researcher. The evening flowed easily after that. Claire found herself talking about growing up in a small town in Pennsylvania, her passion for science that had been nurtured by a high school chemistry teacher, and her dream of developing treatments that would be accessible to everyone, not just those who could afford them. In turn, Gabriel told her about his childhood in Boston, his close relationship with his younger sister, and his dog Archie's habit of stealing his socks. Only the left ones, Gabriel said, laughing. Never the right. I have a drawer full of right socks with no partners. Claire couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed so freely or felt so comfortable with someone new. There was none of the posturing or game-playing she'd experienced in past relationships. Gabriel listened when she spoke, asked thoughtful questions, and shared his own thoughts and experiences without dominating the conversation. As they finished their dessert, a tiramisu, they decided to split. Gabriel leaned forward slightly. I have a confession to make, he said, his expression turning serious. I knew who you were before the gala. Claire raised an eyebrow. Oh, your research proposal crossed my desk last month. Owens Healthcare is considering funding your targeted immunotherapy project. Are you serious? Claire set down her fork. That proposal has been making the rounds for almost a year with no takers. Gabriel nodded. Most investors are looking for quick returns. Your project is more long-term, but the potential impact is enormous. That's why I wanted to meet you at the gala to discuss the possibility of a partnership. He held up a hand. But that's not why I asked you to dinner tonight. I want to be clear about that. Claire studied his face, looking for signs of deception but finding none. So this isn't about securing my research for Owens Healthcare. Absolutely not. Gabriel's voice was firm. I separated those intentions the moment I saw you hiding behind that column. This dinner is because I enjoy your company and wanted to get to know you better. Claire believed him. There was an earnestness to Gabriel that was refreshing after Vincent's manipulations. Thank you for being honest, she said, and for what it's worth, I'm glad you asked me to dinner. Gabriel's smile made her heart skip. Me too. After dinner, Gabriel walked Claire back to her apartment. The night was clear and cool, perfect for a stroll through the city streets. They walked close together, not quite touching but aware of each other's presence. Thank you for tonight, Claire said as they reached her building. It's been a long time since I've enjoyed myself this much. The pleasure was all mine, Gabriel replied. He hesitated, then added, I'd like to see you again if you're interested. Claire smiled up at him. I'd like that too. Gabriel took a step closer, his eyes asking a question. Claire answered by tilting her face up to his. The kiss was gentle and brief, but it sent warmth spreading through her entire body. When they pulled apart, Gabriel tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Good night, Claire. Good night, Gabriel. As she watched him walk away, Claire touched her lips, still feeling the impression of his kiss. One dinner had turned into the promise of more, and for the first time in a long while, Claire found herself looking forward to the future. Over the next few weeks, Claire and Gabriel fell into a comfortable rhythm. They had dinner twice more, then a Sunday afternoon at the art museum, followed by a hike with Archie, who had immediately decided that Claire was his new favorite person. I think he likes you more than me, Gabriel complained good-naturedly as Archie abandoned a game of fetch to flop at Claire's feet for a belly rub. He has excellent taste, Claire teased, scratching the golden retriever's belly. Gabriel watched them with a soft expression. Yes, he does. The warmth in his voice made Claire look up and catch his gaze. The affection she saw there made her breath catch. They'd been taking things slowly, both mindful of the professional intersection of their lives and Claire's recent difficult breakup. But in that moment, Claire realized she was falling for Gabriel, falling hard and fast. The realization should have frightened her. After Vincent, she'd promised herself she would be more cautious, more guarded. Yet with Gabriel, caution seemed unnecessary. He was consistently respectful of her boundaries, transparent about his intentions, and genuinely interested in her thoughts and feelings. Their professional lives began to intersect as well. Owens Healthcare officially approved funding for Claire's research project, though Gabriel had recused himself from the final decision to avoid any conflict of interest. Claire appreciated the gesture, even though she knew her proposal stood on its own merits. The only shadow on their growing relationship was Vincent. Though he hadn't approached Claire directly since the gala, she occasionally spotted him watching her from a distance outside her apartment building, across the street from her favorite coffee shop, in the parking garage at work. She mentioned it to Gabriel one evening as they cooked dinner together at his spacious downtown loft. "I feel like I'm being paranoid," she said, chopping vegetables while Gabriel stirred a sauce on the stove. "But I keep seeing him, always just far enough away that he's not technically violating the restraining order." Gabriel's expression darkened. "You're not being paranoid. That's a classic intimidation tactic." He set down his spoon and turned to face her. "Have you documented these sightings?" Claire nodded. "My lawyer suggested keeping a log, but there's not much else I can do unless he actually approaches me or makes a threat." Gabriel wiped his hands on a towel and came to stand beside her. "I don't want to overstep, but I'm concerned about your safety. Would you consider moving to a building with better security, or at least letting me help upgrade your current security system?" Claire set down her knife. "I don't want to let him drive me from my home. That feels like letting him win." "I understand that," Gabriel said gently. "But your safety isn't a game with winners and losers. It's non-negotiable." The concern in his eyes touched something deep in Claire. Vincent had always dismissed her fears, made her feel like she was overreacting or being dramatic. Gabriel's immediate acceptance and desire to help made her feel validated and protected. "Maybe we could look at some security upgrades," she conceded. "But I'm not moving. Not yet, anyway." Gabriel nodded, respecting her decision. "Fair enough. I know a security consultant who specializes in these situations. Would it be okay if I put you in touch? That would be helpful. Thank you." Claire leaned up to kiss him softly. Gabriel wrapped his arms around her, deepening the kiss for a moment before pulling back to look into her eyes. "I care about you, Claire, a lot. I just want you to be safe." "I care about you too," she whispered, realizing it was the first time they'd verbalized their feelings. The moment was interrupted by Archie, who decided dinner preparations were taking too long and nudged his way between them with a plaintive whine. They both laughed, the tension broken. "Yes, we care about you too, you shameless beggar," Gabriel told the dog, scratching behind his ears. The evening continued with dinner, wine, and conversation by the fireplace. It was nearly midnight when Claire reluctantly said she should head home. "You could stay," Gabriel suggested, his voice casual though his eyes revealed his hope. "No pressure. I have a guest room if you prefer." Claire considered the offer. They hadn't spent the night together yet, though the chemistry between them was undeniable. She'd been hesitant to take that step, still healing from Vincent's emotional manipulation. But looking at Gabriel now, patient and understanding, Claire realized she was ready. She wasn't letting go of her caution. She was choosing to trust a man who had earned it. "I'd like to stay," she said softly, "and not in the guest room." Gabriel's smile was both tender and heated as he drew her into his arms. "Are you sure?" Claire answered by pulling him down for a kiss that left no doubt about her certainty. Later, lying in Gabriel's arms with moonlight streaming through the bedroom windows, Claire felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. Gabriel's steady breathing beside her, one arm draped protectively across her waist, felt right in a way she couldn't articulate. "What are you thinking about?" Gabriel murmured, his voice husky with sleep. Claire turned to face him, tracing his jawline with her fingertip. "How unexpected this all is. A month ago I was hiding from my ex at a gala, and now, Gabriel prompted when she trailed off. "Now I'm falling in love with you," Claire admitted, the words slipping out before she could overthink them. Gabriel's eyes softened as he pulled her closer. "I'm already there, Claire. I've been falling since the moment you spilled your champagne on my shoes." Claire laughed softly. "I did not spill my champagne on your shoes." "You nearly did," he teased, kissing her forehead. "And I would have let you ruin my very expensive shoes just to keep talking to you." "Such sacrifice," Claire murmured against his chest. "My hero." Gabriel's arms tightened around her, and in the safety of his embrace, Claire drifted off to sleep, thinking that perhaps sometimes one night really could turn into forever. The following Monday, Claire arrived at her lab to find a bouquet of roses on her desk. Her first thought was that they were from Gabriel, but as she approached, she felt a sense of unease. Gabriel knew she preferred wildflowers to roses. There was no card, but Claire didn't need one to know who they were from. This was exactly the kind of grandiose gesture Vincent had always made public, showy, designed to make others think he was the perfect boyfriend while privately using the gesture to control her. "After all I do for you," he would say whenever she disagreed with him, "how can you be so ungrateful?" Claire didn't touch the flowers. Instead, she called security to have them removed and documented the incident for her lawyer. She tried to focus on her work afterward, but the intrusion left her feeling unsettled. Vincent was escalating, moving from distant observation to entering her workspace. She was deep in concentration over some lab results when her phone rang. Seeing Gabriel's name on the screen brought an immediate smile to her face. "Hey you," she answered. "Hi, beautiful." Gabriel's warm voice came through the line. "I was thinking about kidnapping you for lunch. Are you free?" "That sounds like the best offer I've had all day," Claire said, realizing she'd been so focused on her work that she'd forgotten about lunch entirely. "But I can only spare an hour. We're in the middle of a promising test sequence. An hour with you is better than a day with anyone else." "I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. Perfect. I'll meet you in the lobby." Claire hung up feeling lighter. Gabriel had a way of doing that, brightening her day with just his voice. She quickly tidied her desk and headed to the bathroom to freshen up before lunch. As she was washing her hands, the bathroom door opened, and Claire froze. Vincent stood there, blocking the exit. "What are you doing in the women's bathroom?" Claire demanded, trying to keep her voice steady despite the fear racing through her. "You're violating the restraining order." Vincent's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Did you like the flowers? I remember how much you love roses." "I never liked roses. You just never bothered to ask what I actually preferred." Claire reached for her phone in her lab coat pocket. "I'm calling security." Vincent moved closer. "Is it because of him? That rich boy playing doctor? What does he have that I don't?" "Respect for boundaries, for starters," Claire replied, backing away until she hit the wall. "You need to leave, Vincent, now." "We were good together, Claire, you know we were." Vincent's voice softened, taking on the persuasive tone he'd used whenever they fought. "We just need to talk. Give me 5 minutes. "No," Claire's voice was firmer now. "We're done talking. You need to move on. Vincent's expression hardened. Because of Owens. Do you think he actually cares about you? Men like that use women like you and discard them. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need your protection, Claire said, her finger hovering over the emergency call button on her phone. Please leave before this gets worse for you. For a tense moment, Claire thought Vincent might actually grab her, but a noise in the hallway outside seemed to make him reconsider. With a last dark look, he backed toward the door. This isn't over, Claire. You'll see I'm right about him. As soon as Vincent left, Claire slid down the wall, her legs suddenly unable to support her. Her hands shook as she called security and then Gabriel. Gabriel arrived at the lab in record time, concern etched across his features as he found Claire in her office, a security guard posted outside her door. "Are you okay?" he asked, immediately kneeling beside her chair and taking her hands in his. "What happened?" Claire recounted the bathroom confrontation, Gabriel's expression growing darker with each detail. "That's it," he said when she finished. "This has gone beyond harassment. We need to get the police involved again, update the restraining order and press charges for today's violation." Claire nodded, the shock beginning to wear off. "I know. My lawyer is already on it." She squeezed Gabriel's hands. "I'm okay, really. He didn't touch me." "But he could have," Gabriel said, his voice tight with restrained anger. "He cornered you in a bathroom, Claire. That's not just crossing a line, it's leaping over it." The security guard stepped into the office. "Dr. Parker, the police are here to take your statement." The next few hours were consumed with police reports, statements, and calls to her lawyer. Gabriel stayed by her side throughout, a steady, calming presence even as she could sense his tightly controlled fury at Vincent's actions. By late afternoon, a judge had approved an emergency extension of Claire's restraining order with stricter terms, and the police were looking for Vincent to serve him with the new papers. Claire was exhausted, the adrenaline crash leaving her drained. "Let me take you home," Gabriel said as they finally left the police station. "Or better yet, come stay with me for a few days, just until they find Vincent and serve the papers." Claire hesitated. She didn't want to be driven from her home, but the thought of returning to her apartment alone after today's events made her anxiety spike. "Are you sure it wouldn't be an imposition?" Gabriel cupped her face gently. "You could never be an imposition. Besides, Archie would never forgive me if I didn't bring you home when you need a furry therapy dog." That drew a small smile from Claire. "Well, I wouldn't want to disappoint Archie." They stopped by her apartment so Claire could pack a bag for a few days. Gabriel insisted on checking every room before letting her enter, making sure Vincent wasn't lurking inside. The precaution should have seemed excessive, but after today's confrontation, Claire was grateful for it. At Gabriel's loft, Archie greeted them with enthusiasm, seeming to sense Claire's distress and staying especially close to her throughout the evening. Gabriel ordered takeout, opened a bottle of wine, and did everything he could to help Claire relax and feel safe. Later, as they sat on the couch with Archie sprawled across both their laps, Gabriel brought up something that had been bothering him. "Claire, there's something Vincent said that I can't stop thinking about." Claire tensed slightly. "What's that?" "He told you I would use and discard you." Gabriel's eyes were troubled. "I need you to know that's not who I am or what this is." Claire reached out to touch his face. "I know that, Gabriel. Vincent was just trying to manipulate me. It's what he does. Still, I want to be clear." Gabriel took her hand and kissed her palm. "What I feel for you isn't casual or temporary. I love you, Claire. I know it might seem fast, but I've never been more certain about anything or anyone." The simple declaration, delivered without grand gestures or dramatic speeches, brought tears to Claire's eyes. It was so different from Vincent's performative declarations of love always in public, always designed for an audience. "I love you too," she whispered, realizing the truth of it as the words left her mouth. "And it doesn't feel too fast. It feels right." Gabriel pulled her closer, careful not to disturb Archie, who was snoring softly. "We'll get through this Vincent situation. I promise." Claire believed him. For the first time since Vincent had started his campaign of harassment, she felt truly confident that she would eventually be free of him. With Gabriel by her side, she felt stronger, more capable of standing her ground. The next morning, Claire woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Gabriel's voice in the kitchen. He was on the phone, speaking quietly but intently. "Yes, I understand the legal complexities, but surely there must be additional measures we can take." "Yes, that's exactly what I'm suggesting." "I appreciate that, Mark. Keep me updated." Claire padded into the kitchen just as Gabriel ended the call. "Morning," she said, accepting the mug of coffee he offered. "Who was that?" "Mark Davidson, the head of security for Owens Healthcare. I've asked him to review your building's security and suggest upgrades." Gabriel hesitated. "I hope that's okay. I'm not trying to overstep." Claire leaned up to kiss him softly. "It's not overstepping. It's caring. Thank you." Gabriel wrapped his arms around her, resting his chin on top of her head. "The police called while you were asleep. They've been trying to locate Vincent to serve the new restraining order, but he's not at his apartment or the hospital." A chill ran through Claire. "That's concerning. They'll find him," Gabriel assured her. "In the meantime, I've arranged for additional security at your lab and your apartment building." Claire pulled back to look at him. "You've been busy this morning. I want you safe." Gabriel's expression was serious. "I meant what I said last night, Claire. I love you, and I protect what I love." The next few days fell into an unexpected but comfortable routine. Claire stayed at Gabriel's loft, commuting to her lab with a security escort that Gabriel had insisted on providing. In the evenings, they would cook together, work side by side on their laptops, or simply enjoy each other's company. It felt strangely domestic for such a new relationship, but neither of them commented on it. There was a sense that they were skipping several traditional steps in dating, accelerated by both the intensity of their connection and the external pressure from the situation with Vincent. 4 days after the bathroom incident, Claire's lawyer called with news. They finally located Vincent and served him with the new restraining order, Claire told Gabriel after ending the call. He was staying at a hotel under a different name. Gabriel's relief was palpable. "That's good news." "Did they say how he reacted?" "According to my lawyer, he was surprisingly calm, almost resigned." Claire frowned. "That doesn't sound like Vincent." "People can surprise you," Gabriel said, though he didn't look entirely convinced. "Maybe he's finally realized he needs to move on." Claire wanted to believe it was that simple, but something didn't feel right. Vincent never gave up easily, especially when his pride was involved. Her concern proved justified the very next day. As Claire was leaving her lab, her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "If I can't have you, no one will, especially not him." Claire immediately showed the message to her security escort, who reported it to both the police and Gabriel. By the time she arrived at Gabriel's loft, he was already on the phone with the police, his free hand rhythmically stroking Archie's head as if to calm himself. "They're tracing the number," Gabriel told her after ending the call. "And they're increasing patrols around all relevant locations here, your apartment, both our workplaces." Claire sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. "When does it end, Gabriel? When does he finally accept it's over and leave me alone?" Gabriel sat beside her, taking her hand. "I don't know. But I do know we'll get through it together." He hesitated, then added, I have a suggestion, but I don't want you to think I'm trying to control your decisions. What is it? I have a house outside the city. It's on a few acres, completely private with an excellent security system. We could go there for a while, just until things calm down with Vincent. Claire considered the offer. Normally, she would resist such a suggestion, seeing it as letting Vincent win by driving her from her home and work. But she was tired of looking over her shoulder, tired of jumping at shadows, tired of feeling unsafe in her own life. What about my research? I can't just abandon the lab. You wouldn't have to, Gabriel assured her. The house has a fully equipped home office. You could remote in for meetings, review data, write up reports. It would just be for the hands-on lab work that you'd need to delegate temporarily. Claire thought about her team. They were competent and could certainly handle the day-to-day operations with remote guidance. And the thought of escaping the constant tension, even temporarily, was incredibly appealing. Okay, she decided. Let's do it, but just for a little while. Gabriel's smile was worth any doubt she might have had. We can leave tomorrow, I'll make the arrangements. Claire called her lab manager that evening to explain the situation and set up protocols for remote work. Gabriel contacted his executive team to do the same. By morning, they were packed and ready to leave the city behind. Gabriel's house outside the city turned out to be a stunning modern home nestled among trees on the shore of a small lake. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the water from nearly every room, and a wraparound deck provided outdoor living space that felt like an extension of the forest. This is your idea of a house? Claire asked as Gabriel gave her a tour. It's practically a resort, Gabriel laughed. It was my one indulgence when Owens Healthcare started becoming successful. I wanted a place to escape, somewhere peaceful where I could think and recharge. It's beautiful, Claire said, genuinely impressed. The home was luxurious without being ostentatious, with warm woods, comfortable furnishings, and thoughtful details throughout. Archie clearly knew the place well, immediately running to check his favorite spots and returning with a well-loved tennis ball that he dropped expectantly at Claire's feet. I see I've been assigned ball-throwing duty, Claire laughed, picking it up. He knows I'll be busy bringing in the luggage, Gabriel said with a grin. Go ahead. The back lawn leads right down to a private beach. He loves chasing the ball into the water. Claire spent the next hour playing with Archie while Gabriel unpacked their things and made some work calls. The simple joy of throwing a ball for an enthusiastic dog in a beautiful setting helped Claire relax for the first time in days. That evening, they grilled steaks on the deck and ate at a table overlooking the lake as the sun set, painting the water in shades of gold and orange. After dinner, they sat side by side in Adirondack chairs, Gabriel's hand finding hers as they watched the stars emerge. Thank you for suggesting this, Claire said softly. I didn't realize how much I needed to get away until we actually did. Sometimes a change of perspective helps, Gabriel replied, squeezing her hand. And selfishly, I love having you here. This place has always been special to me, but sharing it with you makes it even more so. Claire leaned over to kiss him, a kiss that quickly deepened with the freedom of knowing they were completely alone, without worries about work or Vincent or anything beyond the connection between them. Later, lying in Gabriel's arms in the master bedroom with moonlight streaming through the windows, Claire felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in months. I could get used to this, she murmured, tracing patterns on Gabriel's chest. To what specifically? The house, the privacy. My charming company, Gabriel asked, a smile in his voice. All of it, Claire admitted. Being with you feels like coming home. She looked up at him, suddenly vulnerable. Is that crazy to say so soon? Gabriel's expression softened as he brushed her hair from her face. If it is, then we're both crazy, because I feel exactly the same way. The next 2 weeks at the lake house fell into a rhythm that felt both new and somehow familiar, as if they'd been sharing a life for years rather than weeks. Mornings began with coffee on the deck, followed by a few hours of work in the home office they now shared. Afternoons often included a walk around the property with Archie or a swim in the lake if the weather was warm enough. Evenings were for cooking together, watching movies, or simply talking by the fire. Claire's research continued to progress with daily video calls to her team. Gabriel managed his company remotely, taking important meetings via video conference and delegating where appropriate. They were both still fully engaged with their careers, but the setting and the company made the work feel less stressful. The threat of Vincent receded to the back of Claire's mind, though she knew the respite was temporary. They would eventually have to return to the city, to their regular lives and the unresolved situation with her ex. But for now, this peaceful interlude was exactly what she needed. One evening, about 2 weeks into their stay, Gabriel seemed unusually quiet during dinner. Claire noticed him checking his phone more frequently than normal, a slight frown appearing each time. "Is everything okay?" she finally asked as they cleared the dinner plates. "You seem distracted." Gabriel hesitated, then sighed. "I didn't want to worry you, but there's been a development with Vincent." Claire set down the plates she was holding. "What kind of development?" "He's been fired from the hospital for professional misconduct. Apparently, he was accessing your medical records and those of some of your colleagues without authorization." Claire felt a chill run through her. "My medical records? Why would he?" She trailed off, remembering how controlling Vincent had always been about her health. He'd insisted on being her doctor despite the obvious conflict of interest, pressuring her to take medications he prescribed without explaining why she needed them. "The hospital is conducting a full investigation," Gabriel continued, "and the police are taking it very seriously. This goes beyond stalking into potential medical fraud." Claire sank into a chair, processing this new information. "I always felt something was off about how he handled my medical care. He'd get so angry if I questioned his recommendations." Gabriel sat beside her, taking her hands. "Claire, I hate to ask this, but did you ever feel strange after taking medications he prescribed? Unusually tired or confused, maybe?" The question brought back uncomfortable memories. There had been times, especially toward the end of their relationship, when Claire had experienced unexplained drowsiness or mental fog. She'd attributed it to stress or overwork, but now, "You think he was medicating me without my knowledge?" The possibility was horrifying. "I think it's worth investigating," Gabriel said carefully. "The pattern of behavior he's exhibiting goes beyond the typical rejected ex. There's something more pathological at work." Claire felt sick at the thought of Vincent potentially drugging her, manipulating her body chemistry to make her more compliant or dependent. It would explain so much about the last months of their relationship: her increasing isolation, her difficulty making decisions, her growing reliance on Vincent for everything. "I want to get tested," she decided, "to see if there's anything in my system that shouldn't be." Gabriel nodded. "I can arrange for a discreet, thorough screening, and if we find anything..." "If we find anything, I'm pressing charges," Claire said firmly, "for everything." The following day, a Dr. Gabriel trusted came to the lake house to take blood and hair samples from Claire. The results wouldn't be immediate, but within a few days, they would know if Vincent had been medicating Claire without her consent. While they waited, Gabriel received another concerning update. Vincent had emptied his bank accounts and put his condo up for sale. Signs pointed to him preparing to leave the country. The police are monitoring airports and border crossings, Gabriel told Claire. But if he has false identification. Claire shuddered at the thought of Vincent disappearing, potentially to return when she least expected it. The fragile sense of security she'd built over the past 2 weeks began to crumble. Gabriel must have sensed her fear because he pulled her into his arms. "We'll get through this," he promised. "I won't let him hurt you again." 3 days later, Claire's test results confirmed their worst suspicions. Trace amounts of several psychiatric medications were found in her system, including a benzodiazepine commonly used to treat anxiety, but which could cause confusion and memory issues at improper doses. "He was drugging me," Claire said numbly, staring at the report. "For months, making me question my own judgment, my own reality." Gabriel's expression was a mixture of rage and heartbreak. "Claire, I'm so sorry. What he did to you, it's unconscionable." Claire took a deep breath, focusing on the facts rather than the violation she felt. "We need to take this to the police. It's evidence of a crime." "Already done," Gabriel assured her. "My lawyer submitted the results this morning." They're upgrading the charges against Vincent to include medical assault. The revelation should have been the final piece needed to ensure Vincent faced serious consequences. But when the police went to arrest him at his last known location, he was gone. His car was found abandoned at a long-term parking garage near the airport, but there was no record of him boarding any flights. Vincent had vanished. The police assured Claire that they were doing everything possible to locate him, but the uncertainty of his whereabouts added a new layer of anxiety. Was he truly gone, or was he still in the city, watching and waiting? A week after the test results, Gabriel received a call from his head of security at the lake house. As Claire watched his expression change from confusion to alarm, she knew something was very wrong. "When?" Gabriel demanded. "Was anyone hurt?" He listened for a moment, then said, "Double the security at all locations. I want a complete sweep of both buildings." "Yes, now." When he hung up, his face was grim. "There was a break-in at my city loft last night. Nothing was taken, but—" He hesitated. "But what?" Claire prompted, her heart racing. "Someone left a message for you." Gabriel ran a hand through his hair. It was on the bedroom mirror, written in what looks like red lipstick. "What did it say?" Claire's voice was barely a whisper. "I know where you are. You can't hide from me." Gabriel's eyes met hers. "Claire, I think it's time to consider more drastic measures until they find him." Claire felt a surge of anger cutting through her fear. "No, I'm not running anymore. I'm not letting him control my life or make me afraid. We need to end this." Gabriel studied her face. "What are you suggesting? We go back. We use me as bait to draw him out." "Absolutely not," Gabriel said immediately. "That's too dangerous." "Not if we plan it carefully," Claire argued. "The police can set up surveillance. We can be prepared, but this needs to end, Gabriel. I can't live looking over my shoulder forever." Gabriel was clearly torn between his desire to keep Claire safe and his understanding of her need to resolve the situation. "I don't like it," he finally said, "but I understand why you want to do it." They spent the next 2 days working with the police to develop a plan. Claire would return to her apartment, with undercover officers positioned throughout the building and the surrounding area. Gabriel would appear to return to his loft, but would actually be stationed with the police command center monitoring the operation. The plan was set in motion exactly 3 weeks after they had first left for the lake house. Claire felt a strange calm as she entered her apartment for the first time in weeks. It had been thoroughly searched and secured, with hidden cameras installed in every room and a panic button disguised as a watch on her wrist. For the first 2 days, nothing happened. Claire went about her normal routine, going to work, stopping at her usual coffee shop, taking walks in the evening. Always under surveillance, always protected, but to anyone watching, she appeared to have simply returned to her life. On the third night, as Claire was preparing dinner in her apartment, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in almost immediately, but in that brief moment of darkness, Claire sensed she was no longer alone. "Hello, Claire." Vincent's voice came from the doorway to her kitchen. He looked thinner than she remembered, his usually immaculate appearance now disheveled, his eyes wild. Claire's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady, buying time for the police to respond to the silent alarm she'd triggered with her watch. "Vincent, how did you get in here?" He smiled, a chilling expression that held no warmth. "I've had a key for months. Did you really think changing the locks would keep me out? I know everything about you, Claire. Everything." "Then you know it's over between us," Claire said firmly, keeping the kitchen island between them. "It's been over for a long time," Vincent's smile faltered. "Because of Owens. He doesn't know you like I do. He can't take care of you properly." "He doesn't try to take care of me," Claire replied. "He respects me as an equal, something you never did." Vincent's expression darkened. "I gave you everything. I made you better. Those medications were for your own good. You were always so anxious, so scattered without them." Claire felt a surge of anger. "You drugged me without my consent. You manipulated me, controlled me, made me doubt myself. That's not love, Vincent. That's abuse." "No." Vincent took a step forward, his hands clenching at his sides. "Everything I did was because I love you. Owens is the one manipulating you. He's using you for your research, for the prestige it will bring his company." Claire shook her head. "This isn't about Gabriel. This is about you and me and what you did. It was wrong, Vincent. Criminally wrong." Vincent's hand moved to his pocket and Claire tensed, suddenly afraid he might be armed, but what he withdrew was a small vial. "I brought your medication," he said, his voice taking on a soothing tone that made Claire's skin crawl. "You haven't had it for weeks. That's why you're confused, why you think you love him. Once you take this, you'll remember how good we were together." Claire glanced at the vial, then back at Vincent's face. Where were the police? They should have been here by now. "I'm not taking anything you give me, not ever again." Vincent's expression hardened. "Yes, you will, one way or another." He lunged across the island, grabbing for her arm. Claire dodged, knocking over a chair as she backed away. Vincent pursued, his face contorted with rage. "Stop fighting this, Claire. I'm trying to help you." Claire continued backing away, leading him toward the living room where she knew there were more cameras and, hopefully, police ready to enter. "The only one who needs help is you, Vincent. You're sick." That seemed to snap something in him. With a roar of anger, Vincent charged at her. Claire tried to dodge again, but he anticipated her move, grabbing her arm and twisting it painfully. "Take it," he hissed, trying to force the open vial toward her mouth with his other hand. Claire fought with everything she had, kicking and struggling against his grip. She managed to knock the vial from his hand, sending it shattering to the floor. Vincent's eyes went wide with disbelief, then narrowed in fury. "You'll regret that," he snarled, his grip tightening painfully on her arm. Suddenly, the apartment door burst open. Police officers flooded in, weapons drawn. "Police, freeze, let her go." Vincent yanked Claire in front of him, his arm across her throat. "Stay back," he shouted. "I'll hurt her." Claire could feel Vincent's ragged breathing against her ear, the desperation radiating from him in waves. This was not how the plan was supposed to go. Where was Gabriel? Was he watching this unfold, helpless to intervene? "Vincent, it's over," Claire said, keeping her voice as calm as possible despite the arm threatening to cut off her air. "There's nowhere to go. Let me go and maybe they'll go easier on you." For a moment, she thought he might actually listen. His arm loosened slightly and she felt him shift behind her, but then his grip tightened again. "If I can't have you, no one will," he whispered. In that moment, Claire saw Gabriel appear in the doorway behind the police, his face pale with fear for her. Their eyes met across the room, and Claire felt a surge of determination. She would not let Vincent win. Not now, not when she had finally found real love. With a sudden move born of desperation, Claire drove her elbow hard into Vincent's ribs, simultaneously stomping on his instep with all her strength. The combination caused his grip to loosen just enough for her to twist away. "Now," she shouted to the police. Everything happened at once. Officers surged forward, tackling Vincent to the ground. He fought wildly, screaming threats and accusations, but was quickly subdued and handcuffed. Gabriel pushed past the police to reach Claire, pulling her into his arms with a desperation that matched her own. "Are you hurt? Did he hurt you?" Claire shook her head, burying her face against his chest. "I'm okay. It's over. It's finally over." As the police led a still struggling Vincent away, reading him his rights and adding assault and attempted poisoning to his growing list of charges, Claire felt the tension of months finally begin to release. In Gabriel's arms, with Vincent finally facing consequences for his actions, she could at last begin to believe in a future free from fear. The aftermath of Vincent's arrest was a whirlwind of police statements, legal meetings, and media attention that Claire could have done without. The story respected Dr. Stalking and drugging his ex-girlfriend, who happened to be a brilliant researcher, dating one of the city's most eligible bachelors, was too sensational for the press to ignore. Gabriel used every resource at his disposal to shield Claire from the worst of the attention, engaging his company's PR team to manage the narrative and security personnel to keep reporters at bay. But the most helpful thing he did was simply being there, a steady presence at her side through every difficult moment. Vincent was denied bail, deemed a flight risk and a danger to others. As investigators dug deeper into his past, they uncovered a pattern of controlling behavior with previous girlfriends, though none had escalated to the level of his obsession with Claire. 3 months after the arrest, with Vincent awaiting trial in custody, Claire finally felt ready to fully move forward with her life. Her research was progressing well, with promising early results that suggested her targeted immunotherapy approach could significantly improve outcomes for certain cancer patients. She and Gabriel had settled into a comfortable routine, dividing their time between his city loft and the lake house, with Archie happily adjusting to having 2 homes. They hadn't formally moved in together, but Claire spent so many nights at Gabriel's that it was becoming a technicality. One Friday evening in early autumn, Gabriel suggested they spend the weekend at the lake house. It had become their haven, the place where they both felt most relaxed and connected, away from the pressures of work and the lingering shadows of the Vincent ordeal. "The leaves are starting to change," Gabriel said as they drove through the countryside. "It's beautiful this time of year," Claire smiled, watching the scenery pass by. "I can't believe I've only known you for 6 months. It feels like so much longer." Gabriel reached across to take her hand. "In a good way, I hope." "In the best way," Claire assured him, squeezing his hand. "You've seen me through the darkest period of my life. Most men would have run in the opposite direction." "Most men aren't in love with you," Gabriel replied simply. "I knew from that first night at the gala that there was something special about you, worth fighting for, worth waiting for." The sincerity in his voice made Claire's heart swell. She had long since stopped questioning whether their relationship had moved too quickly. Some connections defied conventional timelines, and what she and Gabriel shared was one of them. They arrived at the lake house just as the sun was setting, painting the water in fiery hues of orange and gold. After unloading their bags and taking Archie for a quick walk around the property, Gabriel suggested they take the boat out to watch the sunset from the water. "Now, it's almost dark," Claire said, surprised by the suggestion. "The sunset looks even more spectacular from the middle of the lake," Gabriel insisted. "Trust me." There was something in his tone, a barely contained excitement that made Claire curious. "Always." They took Gabriel's small motorboat out to the center of the lake, where he cut the engine and let them drift gently on the calm water. The sunset was indeed magnificent from this vantage point, the colors reflecting off the water around them in a 360-degree panorama. "It's beautiful," Claire breathed, leaning back against Gabriel's chest as they sat together at the stern. "Not as beautiful as you," Gabriel murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. Claire turned to face him, struck by the intensity in his eyes. "What's going on? You seem different tonight." Gabriel took a deep breath. "I had a whole speech planned, about how meeting you changed everything for me, how I never expected one night at a gala to turn into the rest of my life." He smiled nervously. "But now that we're here, all I can think is how much I love you and how I never want to be without you." Claire's heart began to race as Gabriel shifted, reaching into his pocket and withdrawing a small velvet box. "I know it hasn't been that long, and we've been through more in 6 months than most couples face in years. But I don't need more time to know you're the one I want to spend my life with." Gabriel opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald-cut diamond set in platinum. "Claire Parker, will you marry me?" Claire felt tears spring to her eyes, happiness welling up so intensely it was almost overwhelming. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Gabriel, I'll marry you." Gabriel's smile was radiant as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, catching the last rays of the sunset and sending prisms of light dancing across the boat. "I love you," Claire said, wrapping her arms around his neck and pulling him close for a kiss that conveyed everything words couldn't: her love, her gratitude, her absolute certainty that this was right. When they finally broke apart, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. "I had my sister on standby to bring champagne and dinner to the house when we get back. I hope that's okay," Claire laughed, joy bubbling up inside her. "That's more than okay. I can't wait to meet her." As Gabriel started the boat's engine and turned them back toward shore, Claire gazed at the ring on her finger, still catching the fading light. 6 months ago, she had been hiding behind a column at a gala, terrified of her ex-boyfriend. Now she was engaged to a man who had shown her what real love looked like: respectful, supportive, and freeing rather than controlling. One chance meeting had changed everything. One night had indeed turned into forever. The wedding took place the following spring, a small, intimate ceremony at the lake house with only their closest friends and family in attendance. Claire wore a simple ivory gown that made Gabriel's breath catch when he first saw her walking toward him on the shoreline where they'd exchanged their first "I love you." Archie served as the ring bearer, trotting down the aisle with the rings secured to a small pillow on his collar, his golden coat gleaming in the sunlight. Gabriel's sister, Emma, was Claire's maid of honor, the two women having formed a close friendship in the months following the engagement. Vincent's trial had concluded 2 months before the wedding. Faced with overwhelming evidence, he had accepted a plea deal that would keep him incarcerated for several years, followed by strict probation and a permanent revocation of his medical license. The knowledge that he could no longer practice medicine or threaten Claire had lifted the last shadow from their happiness. As Claire and Gabriel exchanged vows beneath an arch of spring flowers, with the lake sparkling behind them. Claire thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. What had begun as a rescue from an unwanted encounter had blossomed into a partnership neither of them had expected but both now cherished above all else. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant announced. "You may kiss the bride." Gabriel pulled Claire close, his eyes filled with love as he whispered, "Forever starts now," before sealing their union with a kiss that promised a lifetime of love, respect, and partnership. The reception was held on the deck and lawn of the lake house, with twinkling lights strung through the trees and tables set up overlooking the water. As the sun began to set, casting the same golden glow that had illuminated Gabriel's proposal, he led Claire to the center of the makeshift dance floor for their first dance as a married couple. "Happy?" he asked, holding her close as they swayed to the music. Claire smiled up at him, her heart so full it seemed impossible to contain all the joy she felt. "Happier than I ever imagined possible." "You, completely," Gabriel replied, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Though I have to admit I've been thinking about something." "Oh." Claire raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "This house has 4 bedrooms," Gabriel said, a hint of vulnerability in his eyes. "I was thinking maybe someday soon we might want to start filling some of them." Claire's smile widened. They had discussed children before, but always as a someday possibility. The fact that Gabriel was bringing it up now, on their wedding day, filled her with a new wave of emotion. "I think that's a wonderful idea," she said softly. "I can't think of anyone I'd rather raise a family with." The love that shone in Gabriel's eyes made Claire feel like the most fortunate woman in the world. From across the deck, Archie barked as if in agreement, making them both laugh. As the night deepened and stars appeared above the lake, Claire found a moment of quiet to reflect on the remarkable journey that had led her to this day. A chance encounter at a gala, a CEO who had stepped in to protect her from a stalker ex, and now, a lifetime stretching before them, full of possibilities. She had never expected one night to turn into forever. But standing here, surrounded by love and looking toward a future brighter than any she had imagined, Claire knew that some unexpected beginnings led to the most beautiful destinations. 2 years later, Claire sat on the deck of the lake house, watching as Gabriel played with their 6-month-old daughter, Lily, on a blanket spread across the lawn. Archie lay protectively beside them, occasionally nuzzling the baby and making her giggle. The past 2 years had brought more joy than Claire had ever thought possible. Her immunotherapy research had progressed to clinical trials, showing promising results in treating previously resistant forms of cancer. Gabriel had expanded Owens Healthcare to include a nonprofit division focused on improving medical care in underserved communities. And 8 months ago, they had welcomed Lily, whose arrival had transformed their world in the most wonderful ways. Claire looked down at the second ultrasound picture in her hand, the one she hadn't shown Gabriel yet. Their family was about to grow again, sooner than they had planned but no less welcome for the surprise. "What are you smiling about?" Gabriel called from the lawn, noticing her expression. Claire stood and walked down to join her family on the blanket. "I have something to show you," she said, handing him the ultrasound image. Gabriel's eyes widened as he realized what he was looking at. Is this?" "Yes," Claire confirmed, her smile widening at his shocked expression. "Apparently Lily is going to be a big sister sooner than we thought. I'm 12 weeks along." Gabriel's face transformed with joy as he carefully set Lily down on the blanket and pulled Claire into his arms. "This is amazing news," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Are you happy about it?" "Incredibly happy," Claire assured him. "Though I think we might need to consider expanding your home office to make room for the nursery." "Our home office," Gabriel corrected gently, "and we have plenty of room for a growing family here." Claire leaned into his embrace, watching as Lily reached for Archie's tail. Their life together wasn't perfect. They still had disagreements, still faced challenges in balancing demanding careers with family life, but it was real and honest and built on a foundation of respect and love. As the sun began to set over the lake, painting the sky in the same golden hues that had witnessed their engagement and wedding, Claire thought about how a single moment can change everything. That night at the gala, when Gabriel had found her hiding behind a column, had set in motion a chain of events that led here to a family, a home, a love she had once thought impossible. One night had indeed turned into forever. And forever, Claire realized as Gabriel kissed her tenderly while their daughter giggled on the blanket beside them, was even more beautiful than she had imagined.